everyone. Madison here with Health by Ratio. My team and I of physical therapists and orthopedic movement specialists and corrective exercise coaches and all the above work together in an online format to help our clients recondition their bodies away from chronic pains and injuries and progress forward beyond just rehabilitation, but also get more physically fit and stronger and progress in their sports and activities that they love to do and get them functionally active as well. And we do it in an online format and basically combine everything from rehabilitation techniques, unique mobility techniques, some proprioceptive corrective exercise, and then we do a ton on the functional exercise side. So we help with workout plans and running gait analysis and all kinds of stuff. And in that list, a huge component of what we help our clients do is work out. We want them to exercise and be able to get stronger, to be able to get more fit. And obviously, this time of the year, being the fact that it is the new year, New Year's resolutions are prevalent right now, and many of us want to get fit. Maybe we want to lose a little bit of weight, and so we want to be exercising. But for those of us that have been dealing with maybe some injuries that have reared their ugly head over the years, or maybe we have some chronic sorenesses, or maybe now that we're working from home and doing this whole remote thing, some random aches and pains are starting to show up. And so when we work out, it doesn't necessarily make us feel good. It's not like a hurt so good workout. It's like, man, that caused my back to be more sore. That's tweaking my knee, or my shoulder or neck just got irritated or got more aggravated. And so it takes the wind out of our sails, right? We get all motivated. We're going to start exercising. I'm going to work out 3 times this week, or I'm going to work out every day this week, or whatever it is. And then we get tweaked and we get hurt. And like I said, it takes the wind out of our sails, and so we fall out of rhythm. So today's topic is all about how to exercise while keeping your body balanced. And I want to make this relatively simple. And this is kind of like that whole 80-20 principle where kind of 20% of the information can get you 80% of the results kind of thing. Like, this is what we're about to talk about. We're talking about kind of the basic important concepts to working out that gets you 80% of the what you need. And to reiterate this, or I guess to give a practical example, is before I became a functional movement specialist, and before I became a corrective exercise specialist and a mobility specialist or a mobility coach and all the above, and before I started working with physical therapists and all that kind of stuff, I started off as just kind of your quintessential, pretty much like idiot personal trainer / strength and conditioning coach. I worked with a lot of people on getting more athletic and pursuing their sports. And I attracted really young on basically 13, 14, 15 years ago, I was attracting a number of clients that were dealing with chronic pains and injuries beyond just wanting to get faster, jump higher, and that kind of stuff. And I started realizing that my clientele was getting more and more and more people that were dealing with a lot of injuries. And I was kind of surprised by this. And it was because the people that I was working with they were feeling better and getting stronger, and they were having these kind of recurring injuries that they had been dealing with through their physical therapy work that they did, chiropractic work, acupuncture work, kind of trying to do all these alternatives, yet they were feeling better just from their workouts, let alone all these additional treatments. And it wasn't because I was some genius. I wasn't a savant. I was an idiot personal trainer. But I had one bit of knowledge that really keyed in with me from an instructor of mine early on, that I remembered and took to heart. And this little piece of knowledge is what allowed me, even before I understood what the heck, how hip flexion versus extension was impacting the body, or how ankle dorsiflexion mattered, or how our dominant internal rotators are aggravating our neck. Before I understood any connection on the body, I was helping people make huge progressions toward their functional health beyond just fitness because of this one principle. The principle is you have way more muscle behind you than in front of you. way more muscle. So if you take all of your muscle tissue in your body, that's 100% of your muscle tissue, roughly 65 to 70% of your muscle tissue, in theory, now some of us that haven't worked on that muscle tissue in a while and that has atrophied and maybe isn't as strong, maybe this isn't the case, but in theory, 65 to 70% of your muscle sits behind you, between your plantar flexor muscles, so basically like your calf complex, this whole guy, your big long hamstrings behind the thighs, your biggest muscle in your body, your glute complex, that big powerful muscle. Then we have like our posterior core stabilizers. We have our big mid-back muscles like our lats and our rhomboids and our mid-traps, all that kind of stuff. All lays behind us. And then you have what's left over. About 30-35% of your muscle tissue is what sits in front. Your chest and your core and your abdomen, I should say. Your quads and some of the front of shin muscles. So you got way more, about twice as much muscle behind you as you do in front of you. So just with that understanding, we should probably, just logically speaking, be doing about twice as many exercises that work on the muscle tissues behind us as exercises that work on the muscle tissues in front of us. That is the one concept that I understood even as an idiot trainer over a decade ago. And that one concept of me just having people work on their back posterior musculature more so than their chest, front of shoulder musculature, for me to focus on having them work more on their glutes and their hamstrings than for them to work on their hip flexors and quads, just that understanding helped me start balancing out people's bodies way more so than what they were doing in some of their very localized specific treatments that they were doing around these injuries. Well, why is that the case? What was happening there? Well, most of us, when we work out, we tend to do exercises that work on the muscles that we see. That's a combination of things. It's because they're the exercise that we always talk about. If you jump into a class, if you do watch a YouTube video or something like that, we're always showing motions that involve pushing and pressing and crunching or planking or wall squats or mountain climbers, burpees, like pikes, leg lifts, all these things that work on the muscles that those are the exercises that are go-tos in group classes, and all of those work on these muscles in front. And then also there's the aesthetic thing. Like we see ourselves in the mirror, so we tend to work on the muscles that we're seeing in the mirror, not as much on the ones that are behind us. And those muscle tissues are already typically very dominant and or very tight. Because if you think about it, for those of us that sit for long periods of time, this hip flexor is getting short and tight all day, every day. Or maybe not all day, literally, but for hours every day, whether it's when we're driving, when we're sitting at the end of the day, whatever. This time sitting, this front of the hip is getting really tight. And we're also tending to maybe not have the best posture, so we're folding forward, and maybe we're rolling the shoulders forward. So everything right here gets nice and tight. So we're already tight in this area. Then, let's say we play sports. Let's say we are getting active. We're running, or we're bike riding, or we are, like I said, playing a sport of some kind, throwing a ball, boxing, whatever. All of these kind of motions involve knee driving motions because we're running or we're pedaling. So we're using these hip flexors and quads a lot to propel those knees forward. We also do a lot of things like throwing, punching, that kind of stuff. So we're working on the top of the shoulder. We're moving the arms straight ahead. And often that, like if we're kind of tight throughout the day, that'll cause us to roll the shoulders forward and we have the arms kind of swinging across body or whatever. So we then go into our sports and we start doing a lot of interior focused movements that, again, work these areas. And then so we have this thing tight throughout our day from our posture, and we have this thing kind of overworked because we are doing it in and around our sports and activities. And then we go to the gym and we do more push-ups, and we do more shoulder presses, or we do burpees, or we do mountain climbers, or we're holding a wall squat where we're in a seated position against the wall, or we do things like leg presses where you're in a seated position and you're basically extending the legs. Obviously a leg press, you're normally in a machine that's pushing this way, or you're even inverted and you're pushing that way, but essentially what you're doing is staying folded at the hips and then just going in and out of a knee extension. So we stay flexed forward here. We do things like leg extensions, and so we do all these exercises that work on the same muscles that are already getting tight throughout our day and are getting overworked throughout our sports and favorite pastime activities outdoors that we enjoy and keep us sane. So maybe we should do the opposite. Maybe we should focus on the things that are behind us, our big back muscles. So what is that? That's all of our pulling motions, rows and pull downs of all kinds, pull-ups. Those are big back exercises. Any variation of them. Reverse flies is another variation. It's just a wide grip version of them. Those are all big back muscle exercises for the upper body. We want to work on our core stabilizers. So our obliques are huge factors here. These guys don't wake up very much. So we want to work on those. They wrap around the whole torso. So that's like our wood chops and anti-rotations and side planks and that kind of stuff. Then we gotta prioritize this butt. This butt is the biggest, most important muscle in the entire body. Our glute complex is massively important for everything that goes on in our body. It's integral in how well your core functions. So we gotta prioritize working on these glutes. So that's doing full range of motion squats and lunges and hip hinges. And then also like you can do like glute bridges and things like that, or fire hydrants, donkey kicks, that kind of stuff that work the glutes specifically as well. But I would say your priority is your big ones, your squats, your lunges, and your hip hinges, but full range of motion. A leg press is not a full range of motion squat. We got to stand all the way up for this butt to turn on. And I say full range of motion because a lot of times also we do a lot of like pulsing squats type thing in classes, or we'll do like half lunges and kind of pulse in and out of it. That's not full range of motion. So we're not really working the glute complex as well as we could as opposed to when we get into our full hip extension and wake up the body. So full range of motion, squats, lunges, and hip hinges actually work on that big glute complex. That's a massive priority for us. But these kind of exercise, if we can prioritize at least twice as many of those for every one pushing motion you do, push-ups, shoulder raises, shoulder presses, shoulder raises, that kind of stuff. If you can be doing 2 pulls to every 1 push, or you can be doing 2 glute activators to every 1 hip flexor quad activator. So hip flexor quad activator is like your wall squats, or holding a squat hold, or pulsing in and out of a squat, like a partial squat. That's hip flexor quad dominant. Also leg lifts for leg lifts, just like raising your legs. That's very hip flexor dominant. Mountain climbers, burpees, those kinds of motions, knee driving type motions, those are going to be very hip flexor quad dominant. So for every one of those, if we can be getting at least 2 big glute hamstring activators and 2 big pulling motions and working on our obliques in comparison to what we're doing in the chest and just the rectus abdominis, which is your 6-pack abdomen right here, or just your quads and your hip flexors, that concept in and of itself is going to solve 80% of your issues when it comes to tweaks and setbacks and the not hurt so good soreness that comes from working out. Like, it's one thing to do a bunch of squats and push-ups and pull-ups and all that kind of stuff and feel sore in your glutes and your chest and your back and that kind of stuff. Like, that's a good sore. We want that kind of soreness. But we don't want to have the lower back feel like the joint just got tweaked. We don't want the hips to get thrown out of alignment. We don't want to have the knees getting swollen or the shoulders getting tweaked or the neck tensing up. Like, those are bad sorenesses. So just working on your posterior chain at least twice as much as the stuff that's in front. If you can work on those exercises, you will keep this body very happy. And that's how I got into this. I kind of fell into it back asswards because I just started working with all of these athletes that were dealing with injuries, but by me prioritizing their big muscle complexes, they started rehabbing and healing. And then I started getting more people that were dealing with injuries because they're like, hey, you worked with my teammate. This worked really well. Can you do that with me too? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll train you the same way. And then I started realizing that there was more of a science to this. And then that unfolded into me getting into the nitty-gritty science behind how the body functions and what we need to do to rehabilitate and all that kind of stuff. And all that knowledge is awesome. And it goes a long way of getting specific on correcting someone's nitty-gritty imbalances. And that's what my team and I do now, and I'd be happy to help you guys with that. But before you even dabble into all of that, this goes a really long way in getting your workouts very, very functional and balancing out your body and supporting your joints with the right balance of how your tissues are already built. We got most of our muscle behind us, so we should be doing exercise that work on that muscle tissue, not as much on the stuff that's in front of us. Well, guys, if you have any desire to get some free help from myself and my team, you're hearing this and you're like, this sounds really great, but I also want to know what are kind of the imbalances, the asymmetries, the subtle things that are going on in my body beyond just the broad spectrum of like, I got to work on my big muscles behind me, is not as much as the little ones in front of me, but like, what specifically do I need to work on? Do I need to strengthen up my glute medius? What exercise should I do for my core that is needed the most for my back stability? Or what do I need to do to help rehabilitate my shoulder or my neck and get my body into a much more functional alignment process? We'd be happy to help you, and we'd be happy to do it for free. My team and I offer free consultation calls. We offer two. The first call is for us to get on the same page with you. It's an information gathering call. It's quick. It's like 20, 25 minutes, but we want to chat with you, see what you're dealing with, obviously talk to you about your goals and what you've been throughout your history and all that good stuff. And once we're on the same page, then we set up a follow-up call over video, and that's where we get real nitty-gritty in seeing how this body moves and why it's doing what it's doing, and create a game plan with you on that video call on what you can do to get yourself moving back to full range of stable motion. So we'll include in the comments of this video our little write-up, the link to our calendar, so you can schedule a free call if you'd like to. And if you have any questions on this topic, or have any topics that you'd like us to cover in the future that we haven't yet, feel free to message us either in the comments of this video, or feel free to send us an email, whatever works best. But we'd love to hear from you and get any feedback for either questions that you currently have on this workout, or workout topic, or, like I said, other suggestions for other topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Outside of that, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you're off to a great start to your New Year's resolutions, and we'll talk to you soon.